is I don't put 100% stock in anyone's opinion who doesn't live with the outcome, right? Advice is great, opinions are great, but if you're not in the seat with me in the car, you don't live with that outcome. It's a different response when that's the case.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this brand new episode of the podcast here from SoFi Stadium. Let's bring in our amazing co-host, Dr. David Meltzer.
Yes, 3 in the house.
Finally.
I can't tell you how excited I am, not only to be here at SoFi, but this next guest, he is like a light in my heart. I watch what he's doing. I'm so proud of him. It's a really interesting interview because I'm really curious to see how he responds to some of your questions, and I got a few for him as well. We actually, most people don't know, we have a whole series called the Mentor Mentee that goes through our history, literally since he was 5 years old, and all the different times that he hated me, screamed at me. I fired him, he came back, and I'm just curious where we are today, so this should be an interesting episode.
Well, we're gonna get there. First, we got to bring in the amazing Jeff Fenster. You may know him for acai bowls. That's how I know him. Everbowl, an amazing concept that's taking the nation by storm. So many people are jumping on board. It has basically everything right. Not basically, it has everything right. Healthy, nutritious,
Delicious.
affordable price points, good for you. It's what people want. When people think about quick food service, most of the time it's going to kill you, but not Everbowl. But what I want to talk about is why. Why would you come up with this crazy idea? Like you didn't need to do this. Everything is fine. And then you're like, I'm going to open up an acai, first one, not even a franchise. Like I'm going to open up an acai bowl concept. Yeah. What in the world was in your mind when you said, this is what I'm going to do next?
Well, before I answer, first, thank you guys for having me. It's definitely the hot seat.
Yeah.
With this heat right now.
Welcome
Yes.
to the hot
Thank you.
He's not
We're gonna make
sweating.
you
He's not
sweat.
sweating because
Yeah,
he's
I'm
nervous.
I'm wearing a hoodie.
Not because
Short.
he's nervous.
We want to see how you answer questions under pressure.
I get
and,
it.
Like,
yeah.
I should be
Bud Light
not
hot
eating
seat.
hot
Well,
wings,
detoxing.
just blasting
Yeah.
heat on.
That should be a new show instead of the
Yeah.
hot wing show.
Yeah,
It's
we
like
do the hot
put them
seat
under a
show.
heater,
Like a
hot
sauna.
seat,
Ask
Bud
him
Light, hot
questions.
seat.
Yeah.
We'll just wear cold towels around our necks while he wears
There's so many
sweatshirts.
sponsorship ideas. You're a
He's
genius,
great.
dude.
He's awesome.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome. And you're welcome.
And there you go.
Yeah, so there we go. No, it's a great question. Actually, I had never thought about owning a restaurant, never wanted to own a restaurant. I had sold my digital marketing agency in 2015 and was trying this whole semi-retirement thing at 33. And let's just say my wife said, get out of the house, you're driving me crazy. I'm too high strung to just sit around. And so it was like, yeah, I'm too young to just sit around. So what am I going to do? And I had no idea. And I was just kind of like in that limbo side. So I started to ask friends like, hey, any thoughts? Like, I'm really good and sold this and done this and I can help in sales. And I just wasn't passionate about any of it. And I was importing acai into the house because I eat superfoods. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, afraid of disease. And so I was out visiting a former client in Poway, California. And I went to Smoothie King to get a smoothie. And the owner of Smoothie King was legitimately picking things out of the store to put in his van. He served me a smoothie, but he said, I'm retiring at the end of the week. This was a Wednesday. And he's shutting this down and been there for 20 years. I'm like, well, what's coming here? He's like, I don't know. And I said, why didn't you sell it? And he said, I tried, but I asked too much and it wasn't going to happen. And I was like, I could sell acai bowls here. Like just in a whim. So I asked for the landlord's name and number. He gave it to me. I called them. I signed a lease the next week without any clue really what I was going to do. And I figured if it didn't work, I would have a consulting business in the back and use it as an office. Rather than pay for an office, I'd have a retail front selling acai bowls and if it's smoothies or whatever. And that was the birth of Everbowl.
And why didn't you stop him?
He tried.
I tried.
You tried.
I did try because when I went into retirement, I went the other route in interior construction and created a franchise. And I had a friend who was a master franchise in Subway. And being my little brother, I was like, dude, you got to fly out here from New York and you have to sit down and analyze this for me and tell me if this is a good idea or not. And both of us were like, dude, you are just going to inherit a terror. I thought, first of all, I am still the biggest fan because it's delicious.
Thank you.
But, you know, great product doesn't make a great franchise. And look, my friends have owned Daphne's, some huge franchises, and it's a difficult business. But the initial reaction was you're making a huge mistake. And as your big brother and consultant. I wouldn't do it. And then years later, as many of my family and friends invested and both participated in it, when I saw the business model, that's when my true respect for the vision that Jeff has, beyond having a great product, the business was so much more than just owning a acai franchise. And so I knew that he was mitigating his risks. I understood that he was using other people's money as well. And he had a secondary business that he could run behind it. But I still thought it was a horrible business decision for a kid in his age.
Well, and in fairness, when I told my parents, we were out to dinner, and my dad said, "Are you nuts? 9 out of 10 restaurants fail." And my mom said, "You don't know how to cook." And those were true, right?
Yeah.
And then my wife, just a kid, was like, "All you do in the kitchen is eat and make a mess." And that's still the foundation. But the truth is, because I didn't know anything about restaurants, because I'm not a chef, and because my intention wasn't to own restaurants, I'm a business guy. So as I got into the business, looking at it through a business lens, I started to realize, like, okay, the first one, I was going to self-fund them initially, never franchise. The first one cost me $300,000. I'm like, okay, that's expensive to go build a lot of these. Why is a smoothie shop so expensive? Well, it's expensive because you hire a general contractor who doesn't do this regularly. You're a one-off opportunity for them. They hire subs, they mark it up. They hire manufacturers and millwork providers and sign makers, and they mark it up, and I get to pay and foot the bill. So I was like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. What if I started my own construction company to build my Everbowl? So I did. And now I brought the cost from 300 to 275 to 260 to 250, and I kept marginally getting it down, which did a few things without me realizing at the time. One, it attracted outside capital so I could get investors, because now they're seeing a business versus a restaurant, and they can understand and appreciate that. And two, all of a sudden my cost to open got lower, which allowed us to be profitable faster and open more. And before I knew it, I had 28 of my own corporate stores, some really cool investors. And then we built a third business to import our own superfoods. And now I have all these cool companies, and I get to do what I am passionate about, which is entrepreneurship and growing and scaling, while having a fun, delicious restaurant opportunity to help communities and help more people be a better version of themselves.
But the one thing I know about investors and being an advisor to the company and
Shareholder.
taking equity is that I bet on Jeff, and it has not been easy. Like, this guy, when I first came in, he was working behind, I don't know how many hours, but behind that, he was serving. And then during COVID, he was delivering later bowls, which was, the only solution is all his stores closed, out of his trunk and driving all day and night, keeping the business alive. And I think the greatest story about how success comes, and we talk about it all the time with the Black Diamond Club, with what you're doing, is that success is exponential, and behavior is at the cornerstone of that success, that it aggregates, accelerates, and compound. And someday we'll get into another module or another episode of the Mentee Mentor, because that's really, with all four of us, why we're so close, is that the products sometimes are good or great, but if you don't have what it takes, if you're not there every day to get to the exponential, and everyone just sees him as this overnight success in the story that I had 28 stores. Yeah, you also almost lost all of them, but you
Correct.
put in, because of your desire, that you must be what you can be. And you've, like me, made huge mistakes, been in situations when people have oversold, lied, manipulated, and cheated you, and you end up with nothing. Someone has stolen your identity at one time.
That's
I
right.
remember that, and they took everything from you. And we've known each other a long time, but I knew that you don't worry about Jeff, you worry about those who encounter him. And whether it's COVID or whether it's 2008, whether it was on a football field where he didn't have much talent like me, I bet on Jeff Fenster. And I still bet on Jeff Fenster because he understands that the only way you stay and have a successful business is to stay in business. I have one question for you. Did you ever think of quitting?
So the closest I've ever actually gotten to being divorced was over Everbowl. And it was the first 6 months.
Which is surprising.
Wow.
Yeah,
I know this
Yeah,
guy.
I know. And you know my wife. And I do plenty of dumb things.
Yeah, me too. Well, that's why our wives love each other.
Right. But it was the first 6 months, and because I had started this restaurant with zero understanding of what I was buying and knew nothing, I was in the business because I believe you have to know your business. And so I'm working behind the counter. I'm working 60, 70-hour weeks. I'm missing all of my kids' stuff, and my wife is irate because she wanted me to get out of the house to do something. She didn't want me to be gone forever.
Right.
And I'm like leaving the house at 6 a.m, coming home at 9 p.m, irritable, tired, running this thing. I'm like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And I'd already signed the second lease. So I have another one coming, and she's freaking out.
Try signing this lease, bro.
Yeah, and she was freaking out. And I remember her saying this to me, and I say this because it was like, it defines, I think, to what you just said. And she's like, you're a millionaire working a minimum wage job and missing your family for what? Quit. And I was like, that was the closest I came, where I was like, is she right? Am I about to lose my family over some business that I don't actually need? But I put my name on this thing. It's public facing versus some of my other businesses. And so I have customers, I've met the community, and I told people I'm doing this. So I had ego and I had all of the insecurities that come with it. And then I sat her down and I said, give me 4 more months. And I assure you, I see what I'm doing here. I see the opportunity. So I hired a guy, Brian Augustine, to come and actually help me run it. So that was the first moment I hired out and brought somebody in, but I felt I understood my business and I knew what I had to do with my vertical integration, where I was going to go and how I was going to accomplish it. And so luckily, within those 4 months, I stopped having to work in the store, behind the counter, sun up to sundown. I got to now work on my business. And that was the closest I came to quitting.
So this is interesting because a couple of things that you've talked about, you got a lot of advice against moving forward in this business and doing what you felt was true and you could see the vision, and yet you still continued to do it, and here we are. But I wonder if at any time you got advice that you resisted, that you were like, no, like maybe from Dave, that he gave you advice and you were like, absolutely, I don't agree
He's the
with
only one
that.
that pays me for advice and doesn't listen to any of it. He does the opposite. He makes a shitload of money.
But then I
Makes
also-
me a great coach. I'm consistent. Sorry.
I wonder though if at any time you realized the advice was right and then leaned into it and it changed things for you.
So the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
I don't not listen to the advice. The key is, and here's the difference. I ask and get a lot of advice from mentors, friends, and people I admire and trust, but there's a line I've never forgotten, and I don't remember who told it to me, but it's always been in my head, which is I don't put 100% stock in anyone's opinion who doesn't live with the outcome, right? Advice is great, opinions are great, but if you're not in the seat with me in the car,
Yeah.
you don't live with that outcome, and it's a different response when that's the case. And so what I do is I take it all, and then I poke holes in it. Why are they saying this? And can I figure out how to solve this? And you know, when Dave was telling me, don't do this, I've done this interior door replacement, this is a bad waste of your time, you can make way more money. I was like, he's right. If I'm gonna own a restaurant or do a single kind of concept, it is a bad business.
Right.
But what's my strength in business is my ability to start companies, serial entrepreneur, think through, vertically integrate, like do those things. So I'm like, then I start to just look at the industry and I'm like, okay, Dave's telling me not to do it. My dad's telling me not to do it. My mom's telling me not to do it. My other friends are telling me not to do it.
Your wife?
My wife for
Yep.
sure. But then I look at all of the big box successful companies and what I saw was they all vertically integrated and become extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what am I going to do that I'm passionate about that I can actually spend my time doing? And I saw a path where I'm like, this is something I can really do because I thought the product was good or good enough. I could hire out if it wasn't. Like, that's not like I'm curing cancer and you
Right.
better hit it or you don't. I'm making an acai bowl. Mine are great, but there are other people who make good acai bowls. So how's our marketing going to be? Well, I just partnered with Neil Patel, one of the world's best marketers. So I'm like, okay, him in my corner, got that. Dave in my corner, got that. I have payroll and HR background, legal background. I've raised a ton of capital for mine and other companies. So I had investors all over the place where if I had a model, I could raise capital.
Yep.
And I had a lot of relationship capital to leverage with celebrities, athletes, people who could endorse me. So all I had to do was figure out this little niche. And so it looks like I didn't accept anyone's advice. The truth is, and credit to you and others, it actually shaped my approach. Had I
Love that.
not gotten that, and they were just like, oh, great idea, go, I would have come in with a different perspective, and I'm probably not as successful or even in business today because I wouldn't have forced myself to scrutinize why everyone around me was telling me no. So I think when we get advice, it's important to understand it, listen to it, sometimes listen to it exactly how it comes, and sometimes take it and understand the vanity with which it's being delivered. Dave's given me his experience and his love, but I now can learn from his mistakes. So if I follow his path and do the same thing he did, it's a bad idea.
Right.
But if he had to do it again, he would also do that same exercise and be way more, happy with the decision. So yes, I did resist it to the outward, but I do actually listen to it. I take it to
Powerful.
heart. And when I can implement it, I do.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
you
very
did
powerful
follow one
perspective.
piece of advice, which is just because someone loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice.
Ah,
That's true.
And that is one advice. Want to finish up, Sean?
Well, yeah, I'm wondering, you were semi-retired, and then you were like, We started with, I'm going to open an acai bowl store concept, random on a Wednesday afternoon. So on a Friday, as you're sitting here, what do you see as being next for Everbowl for Jeff Fenster?
Yeah, great question. So Everbowl is a system. It's not a restaurant. I still don't really believe in restaurants. And what it is it's a system to open health food and make it affordable, filling, delicious, and accessible to people all over the country. So continue to invite franchisees who want to participate and help us on that mission. We have Unevolved Products, which is our product development arm, our partnership with QVC. Bring more better for you products to the world, however it has to be delivered through CPG and direct to consumer on TV and online. We Built, which is our construction arm. We've now expanded out to be working with some of the biggest restaurant and retail concepts in the country, from EOS Fitnesses to Shaquille O'Neal's Big Chickens to Capriotti's Wing Zone, Stretch Zone, et cetera. So grow that and continue to help other high growth retail restaurant brands with scale and solve it. And now we're also working on Unevolved Concepts, where we help people who have ideas and maybe have a name that is very popular in their communities and resources, but don't know how to create from scratch. So we'll help them with menu ideation, design, sales, the entire infrastructure, and kind of use our existing infrastructure almost as a PE firm without the PE part, without giving them money. And then I've been doing a lot more speaking and, listening to Dave's advice on this one, have been focusing the last 18 months on personal brand and actually growing it, because he's been right. It's something that you have forever. And so here's an example of me taking it. Took a while, but I finally took it. And then using it as an opportunity to stand on stages, come on shows like this. And instead of me spending money to advertise my different options to people and be a commercial, I get to teach entrepreneurship, success habits, business, and also be a commercial where they get to learn about these opportunities. So if you're listening to this and you got value, but you're interested in participating, great. And if you're not, hopefully it helps them be more thank And I'm enjoying that aspect.
Well, I love it. Well, we're very grateful for you taking the time. Dave's proud. I'm proud too.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if Lacey's proud.
I am
she's proud.
She's proud. Okay.
She's proud. I
You
can feel it.
see
I
it
feel
on
the
her
energy.
face. You can
We're-
see it.
I love Jeff.
We are grateful, proud, and hot
Yes,
Yeah.
very.
to have
Thank you for being in the
Jeff
hot seat.
Fenster.
The hot seat.
Everbowl.
The hottest
SoFi
podcast
Stadium.
in the world. Dr. Sean
SoFi
Dill,
Stadium.
Dr. Lacey Book, Dr. David, and
I
of
need to
course
be a
Jeff
doctor.
Fenster.
You know how happy my mom would be if I had doctor in front of my name?
That would not even help me because my brother's a rabbi.
Yeah, you lose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I would win. My
You'd
mom,
win.
my mom said, just be a doctor.
That's
my
it.
whole life.
Easy. Yeah.
Well, you too could be a doctor, but you must tune in to the next episode here of the podcast.